Well, here we are again, working through the ABRSM syllabus. Thank you for joining me. Today we're looking at the Grade 7A1 piece, Scherzo. For years I used to call it Scherzo, but it's Scherzo is, I believe, the proper pronunciation, or somewhere in that ballpark, by the wonderful composer Beethoven. So this is a piece of classical music, and so we're going to work through it today, see if we can hear it, and then we shall break it down into the usual bite-sized chunks and discuss. So all we have to do is check the tempo. It's moving along quite quick there. So of course this title Scherzo is really just means playful and kind of just a bit of fun really. So here we go. Right, let's go back to the beginning then. Keep in mind the beginning is to be played very lightly because it's playful and it's piano. So that kind of looseness needs to be there as well. Don't allow yourself to get too tensed up. You must practice slowly if you find it hard to play this evenly. Just make sure that filters into your playing. If you're immediately playing with a tense hand, it's not going to be a very nice piece to play and it's going to be prone to going wrong. And even as I move across the zones, I'm very calm in my movement. So try to filter that in as well when you're playing. We have a staccatissimo effect in bar 3, those staccato wedges, very, very percussive, but you know, short. And then I love that very calming chord at that point in bar 4. So we need to just have that nice. I sometimes delay bar 4 fraction rather than go. You know, I sometimes go. There's that slight looser feel to it. So far we haven't had to use the sustain pedal. As we go into the next section, we still will stay off using sustain pedal, but we have got this slightly harder left-hand part here. Trying to get that looseness might take time. You might have trouble controlling that part of the hand. You know, even when I was playing this, I was struggling to get this down evenly. And in fact, truth be known, I could have probably done with a bit more time to practice this, to really reacquaint myself with this piece, which I played a few years ago. But it's very easy for pieces like this to get difficult again if you don't maintain them. So just practice this section slowly in the left, focusing on evenness and looseness in the hand. That's the best advice I can give you. Don't be impatient and try and play it quick for the sake of it. If you haven't got the control down, you need to master that. The chords, no big deal. Chords are straightforward. So it's all about the left hand, that section. I think we'll just carry on a bit further. So let's go from there a bit slower. Obviously there's a crescendo. You know, and then we're back to being soft. Oopsie daisy. See, is it tricky? Then watch out for the F double sharp in bar 14, which is really a G if you play it on the piano, which is really E flat major in disguise as a D sharp major chord, broken up. Okay, and then also that right hand chord in bar 15, that F double sharp, with a G there. And then suddenly softer. Oops, what's going on here? Lots of mistakes going on my end. Now straight away I feel like pedalling it at the end of this bar on the bottom of page 1. It just feels a little bit more kind of romantic suddenly. I'm pedal pumping each beat here. Now some of you might think, well, I'll just play it without the pedal. You can if you want to, it's up to you. But I think that gives it a little bit more of that classical sort of feel. Oops. That trill there, just be careful on that. You need to look at your hand really when you're playing it. But that will be okay with a bit of practice. So we're going from the bottom of page 1, trying to possibly experiment with pedalling. And even there I was pedalling each beat. It just gives it a little bit more sort of, I don't know, I can't explain, a little bit more essence. At this point I come off the pedal, I think, here at bar 25. I slightly messed this up earlier actually in terms of fingering. Just watch that right hand part from bar 25. What have we got here? I find myself there so far, everything is well on bar 29, F sharp with the 2. And then you could either do the 3 on G sharp or the 2 as suggested. If you do the 2 on the G sharp, you've got to lift off a bit. No big deal, it's fine. Okay, so up to this point then, you could just work on getting this whole chunk of the piece settled before going too much further. If we carry on from this point, we do actually find ourselves playing the same thing again anyway. Oops. Page turn here is not too much of a problem. You know, you could have another copy for the next page next to the music if you really needed to, if you were worried about it. But I think you can turn the page in time because it's a new section coming. So a little bit of space between the two sections won't be, I don't think, too problematic. So you know, you can get away with that as long as you have the page turned up in the corner so you can grab it easily. You would actually unusually turn it with your right hand rather than the left hand, because of course the left hand is busy playing the A, so you're kind of turning it there. You might figure out a different way of doing it, but certainly that's one way that I think could work. So if I go from that last bit, sorry, there we go. Now at this point I'm pedalling again each beat. That's what I'm doing there. Trying to bring out the SF. And again, if you don't want to pedal it, you get a slightly drier sound. Or massively drier sound actually. And I prefer it with the pedal. I think it's more stylistically suitable. If we carry on from this point, we do actually find ourselves playing the same thing again anyway. Oops. Page turn here is not too much of a problem. You know, you could have another copy for the next page next to the music if you really needed to, if you were worried about it. But I think you can turn the page in time because it's a new section coming. So a little bit of space between the two sections won't be, I don't think, too problematic. So you know, you can get away with that as long as you have the page turned up in the corner so you can grab it easily. You would actually unusually turn it with your right hand rather than the left hand, because of course the left hand is busy playing the A, so you're kind of turning it there. You might figure out a different way of doing it, but certainly that's one way that I think could work. So if I go from that last bit, sorry, there we go. Now at this point I'm pedalling again each beat. That's what I'm doing there. Trying to bring out the SF. And again, if you don't want to pedal it, you get a slightly drier sound. Or massively drier sound actually. And I prefer it with the pedal. I think it's more stylistically suitable. If we carry on from this point, we do actually find ourselves playing the same thing again anyway. Oops. We then get to the next section and we have that trill, which I don't know if I played it quite like that earlier. These decorative ideas were often varied in these types of pieces. I mean, the editorial suggestion above suggests, which I think is good. It's very, very flamboyant sounding. I think I played something slightly different earlier, but whoops. So again, that left hand is a bit slippy there, but just getting the 2 on the G, you've just got to make sure that happens on bar 56 in the left hand. Okay, let's just work through this. That's it. You can have a very generous crescendo there because this is Beethoven, and he likes to be big very often in his compositions. So it's big. Then I slightly lay off. Then I do the SF. This is a curious bar here in the left hand at bar 62. You've got that held E. Sorry. It's still there, and the same is true in bar 64, tied to the next E, so be careful. Just a little detail there to be aware of, to not play the E again in the second bar. So bar 62 to 63, that E is tied. It's still there, and the same in 64 and 65. Okay, so going from bar 61, I think I played a chord by mistake. It's very slippy, this piece. There you have it. Of course, you need to then go back and play it again from the beginning because we're not at the end of the piece yet. We have to do da capo. We have to go back to the beginning. So, but as this will be harder to grab actually, because if you've turned that page like this, when you've suddenly got to go back another page, that could be a bit awkward. You'll have to make a decision on this, whether you have another sheet already printed out for this page. So you have your 3 pages lined up already. Or if you want to try and somehow practice back turning the page. You could kind of do it like that if you wanted to. You just would have to practice it a lot. These are decisions that you don't want to leave too late. You know, these are things that you can be mindful of now and start thinking about them before you even practice up to this point. You could start considering what to do. So that's it. You get back to the beginning and we play through that section again. And then when we get to the bottom of page 2, we are at the end of the piece where it says fine. So this just saves having to have lots and lots more pages written out again. I hope what we've talked about today has been useful to you. It's fairly straightforward, really, isn't it? It's not too complicated, but you must just take your time getting the rhythms down cleanly and tidily and not be impatient to want to play it fast if you can't do so. You could even practice playing to a metronome at a slower speed once you're feeling like it's getting a bit easier to play. So that's it for today, folks. Thanks for watching. If you're still here, well done for persevering through the whole video. If you haven't subscribed yet, it would be lovely if you wanted to, because we're going to do a lot more videos with the rest of the graded pieces, and then there's going to be loads of other stuff coming as well. So stay tuned for more. For now, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.